Hello there. Welcome to Play the Game Steve. Villains Beyond, Episode 19, Tower Defense. In this video, we're going to take a look at this very unique scenario that has two villains that must be defeated simultaneously, which is very, very cool. We have an alternate loss condition, which is another very exciting exciting feature. We're going to take a look at the stages of these villains on stage 1, 2s, and 3s. We're going to look at their villain kits and all the cards that will try to punish our heroes. Most importantly, we're going to take a look at those rules that might be unclear and need some clarification. And then most importantly, we are going to take a look at some of those modular sets that we can include to either enhance the thematics of this game, the difficulty, or the just overall enjoyment of the scenario. So all this and more on this episode of Villains Beyond Tower Defense. Alright, so our villains, both Proxima, Midnight, and Corvus Glaive, all have the Black Order trait on all three of their stages. All of them have the same, all stages also have the same wording on the bottom that says Proxima Midnight cannot be defeated while Corvus Glaive has any hit points remaining. Same thing, Corvus cannot be defeated while Proxima has any hit points remaining, which means if you want to move on from stage 1 to stage 2 or 2 to 3, both of the villains must be at 0 hit points. All right, they all three stages of Proxima have a forced interrupt that says when she attacks you, you choose to either deal a damage to the Avenger's Tower or Proxima Midnight will get +2 attack. And that is the same on all three stages. And Corvus Glaive has the same on all three stages as well. That says forced response. After Corvus Glaive makes an undefended attack, you'll discard the top card of the encounter deck and deal 1 damage to the tower for each boost icon on that card. All right, so let's take a look at their stats on stage 1. Proxima has 9 hit points per player, a scheme of 1 and an attack of 2. Corvus has 8 hit points per player, a scheme of 2 and attack of 1. Stage 2, Proxima has a scheme of 1, attack of 3, and 12 hit points per player. And then Corvus on stage 2 has 2 scheme, 2 attack, and 11 hit points per player. Stage 3, Proxima has 2 scheme, 3 attack with 15 hit points per player. And then Corvus has 3 scheme, 2 attack, and 14 hit points per player. So that's a lot of damage for them. So now the main schemes. So Proxima's main scheme is called Under Siege and reveals stage 2A and put it into play next to this stage. So there are 2 main schemes and 2 villains in play. And then Armies of Thanos, when revealed, you'll put the Avengers Tower environment into play. Stronghold side face up. You'll put the Focus Defense attachment into play attached to this stage. Each player searches the encounter deck for a copy of a Black Order Besieger and puts it into play, engage with them, and then you shuffle the encounter deck. Then you flip these up, and then boom, Under Siege, and then Armies of Thanos. So Under Siege starts at 1 per player, goes up at 1 per player, has a maximum of 6. And then there's a force interrupt. When this stage would be completed, you'll remove all the threat from this stage instead, then deal 6 damage per player to the Avengers Tower. So that is one of your loss conditions here, so you got to be careful. And then Corvus Glaive's scheme, it says forced interrupt starts at 1, goes up by 1 per player, and the maximum of 6. And forced interrupt, when this stage would be completed, you'll remove all the threat and then deal each player a face-down encounter card. So this one is pretty bad. So this is the one you don't want to let pop. This one, just dealing with an extra card, it is not the end of the world. So if you're going to focus on threat, always focus on Under Siege before the Armies of Thanos. All right, let's take a look at the Focus Defense. So this is a permanent. The villain who matches the attached scheme is the active villain. So technically when we start, Corvus Glaive is the active villain. So in the rules, so if it says deal 3 damage to the villain, it would be the active villain always that you have to do. All right, and then after the player phases ends, you'll attach this card to the other main scheme, which means when the player phase ends, it's going to be Proxima who's going to be the first one to take a swing at you. All right, so that is good for Focus Defense. Then we have Avengers Tower Stronghold. The unique rule does not apply to Avengers Tower. So that means because there is an environment with Avengers Tower, you can still have the support card Avengers Tower in play. There you go. Force response. After damage is placed here, if there are at least 9 per player damage here, you remove all of it, then flip the Avengers Tower over. So then when that flips over, it's Avengers Tower is still the environment, but damaged. When revealed, you'll discard each other Avengers Tower from play. So if you are playing with an Avengers Tower and you let that explode, you'll have to discard the one that you have in play as your support card. Then as a forced response, after damage is placed here, if there's at least 9 per player damage, the players will lose the game. So technically, there's 18 damage that can go on the tower before you lose the game. Now be careful, because when her main scheme pops, it's 6. And then obviously there's other cards that might have to interact with that. So let's go take a look at their villain cards. So first of all, we have Proxima's Spear, which is a weapon that gives her +1 attack. And then her attacks gain overkill and piercing. So as that combined with the +2, if you're not damaging the tower, can be devastating. But here's a very easy hero action. You can take a damage, spend a lightning and a mental, and then you can discard this card. Also, we have Corvus's Glaive, and this will give him Retaliate 1, again with a +1 attack. And then the hero action is to take a damage and spend a lightning and a physical to discard this card. So pretty simple. Then we have them with their treacheries. Proxima's Power, 2 copies of this card. When revealed, Proxima's activates against you. If it is revealed as a boost card, we'll add the villain's scheme and attack to this villain's scheme and attack for this activation. So if, let's say, he is attacking, you'll add the attack. And if the villain is scheming, you'll add the scheme value to that. So that's Proxima's Power. And then we have Corvus's Cunning, 2 copies of that as well. When revealed, Corvus Glaive will activate against you. And then obviously you can see like the teamwork between them. As a boost card, you'll add the same thing. You'll add the scheme and attack to the villain's scheme and attack for the activation. So very, very easy. All right, Rain Fire, 2 copies of this. When revealed, deal 3 damage to Avengers Tower. So you got to be careful. There's cards in this scenario that will damage the tower. And as a boost effect, if damage from this attack defeats an ally, deal 3 damage to the Avengers Tower. So now you got to be careful when you're defending with your allies, because then you can still end up punishing the tower. So got to be careful here. Then their last treachery is called Bound by Blood. When revealed, you'll heal 2 damage from each villain and give each of them a tough status card. So that makes it even harder for them to die. And as a boost, you'll heal 2 damage from the active villain and give it a tough status card. So not too shabby. Then as minions, we saw they have the Black Order Besiegers. There's 4 copies of that card. It is a Black Order minion with 1 scheme, 2 attack, 3 hit points. There is a force response after they engage you. So that even happens during the setup. It is not a when revealed. It is when they engage you. So that's punishing. You have to choose to either deal the damage to the tower or take 2 damage to your identity. So again, the thematics of this really feels solid, because you feel like, oh my god, all right, we're taking damage, the towers, you really feel that you're getting attacked. Then there's 2 copies of Direct Assault. You'll attach to the villain who is not the active villain. So that means you'll just have to pay attention where the focus defense is, and you'll attach it to the other villains. All right, and then the Forced Interrupt. It gives that villain a +2 attack for their next activation. Forced Interrupt. When the attached villain attacks, this attack gains ranged. And if the attack defeats an ally, you'll deal 3 damage to the Avengers Tower. And at the end of that attack, you'll discard the Direct Assault. So that's a one-time boost. But again, if you're going to block with an ally, it's 3 damage to the tower. All right, and then finally, there is 2 side schemes in their deck. It's called City Under Attack. And it's a good one. It has Hinder 1, so it starts with 2. And then you add 1 per player. And then it has a Crisis icon, which makes sense. But when defeated, the player who defeated this scheme draws a card. So that is really, really good if you're playing one way or another. This is a great side scheme to go get, especially in solo. We'll draw 3 cards. You get rid of it. You draw a 4th card. It's Christmas time. So there you go. So that is their kit. Again, I really feel that the designers hit the nail on the head with this scenario. My gosh, is it fun to play against. These 2 villains work really well. They do have a lot of HP and they have ways to gain tough. But with the scenario as is, so it is fun. It feels like a struggle. It feels like it's a long battle, which is kind of reflective for me to the movie in the Avengers there where they're fighting in Wakanda. So for me, again, super, super fun scenario. Now let's go take a look at some of those modulars you might want to include to increase the thematics, the difficulty, or just the overall enjoyment of this scenario. All right, before I go continue, this is my favorite way to play this scenario when I'm off screen. I love to play this with the entire Black Order team roster. So I love having Ebony Maw, Supergiant, and Black Dwarf along Proxima and Corvus Glaive. I like these 2 tributes in the Black Order and the Blood Despair. I think this is a very, very fun thematic way to play. This is my top recommendation if you're going to do it. This is the way to go to play this scenario. It adds all the baddies to the mix. Obviously, you leave out Corvus and Proxima because they're already there. So you just play all this, and it is a super fun combo. Again, you're only adding 1 modular set, but it's super on theme. And even though it kind of breaks the rules of the aspect modulars, I still think this is the funnest way to play the scenario thematically. All right, so here are my top 3 recommendations for this scenario thematically. The bomb scare for me is one of the funny ones. It's on the easier side, of course. They have the Hydro Bombers kind of come in and destroy the tower. You got the false alarm because those Hydro Bombers don't know how to place bombs. You have the bomb scare and the explosion. So I like this. It's on the easier side but it's still I think it's a little thematic. It's got it's like, oh, they're trying to explode the tower while you're trying to protect the tower. So I think it's a cool little side scheme here. Again, if you're looking for some easier modes of play, that is one modular that I would recommend. The second one, because of like they're attacking the tower, so I like under attack. It's just makes sense. Between the concussive blows here that can just punish all your allies, and then the concussive blasters and the vibranium armor that can enhance the 2 villains. I think it's a good modular set that is again not on the harder difficulty side, but I do admit these concussive blows can really punish your ally strategy, or if you're using a tough strategy to just kind of soak up the damage. So this could be a good countermeasure to what your strategy is trying to do. And then finally, thematically, I recommend this one a lot. It's State of Emergency. I think it just makes sense. It's such a perfect modular set that offers everything, some side schemes with some more minions, and then like taking indirect damage, and then discarding cards, and then losing cards from your hand, and then the citywide crisis that just kind of makes everything just worse and then reveals all of that. So you can't just ignore what's going on. So I love how it kind of pulls you in a different direction as you're trying to save the tower. So I like that it kind of creates a conundrum. I'm like, are we just going to leave those there? Is the disaster at the docks more important than saving the tower? Like, all right, what if I take 3 direct damage? I might die. So I love these conflict that it creates into the game, which you're like, oh my god, if I don't deal with this, this might just punish me right now. So I love this. These are the 3 on theme that I love for this scenario. All right, going for difficulty. If you're looking to increase the difficulty, I do, but not by much, But I do enjoy the Hydra Assault here to increase the difficulty a little bit. The reason why, again, if you're not going to be defending the attacks, the Hydras will also make you lose supports, which might be your Avengers Tower. So again, I think it falls a little bit on theme as well. Also, the Jet Troopers, they'll attack you again, and then again, they don't even need the boost card. Because you're like, okay, well, I won't defend. He's only attacking for 1, but oh shoot, I revealed the 3 boost card, still damaging the tower. Same for her. If you either deal a damage to the tower or she's gonna get +2 attack, you're gonna be like, what am I gonna do? Even though they don't get the boost card, it's still very, very punishing. So I like that. And then the Hell Hydra, well, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't fit the theme, but those 5 minions there can really put a little dent in your game plan. The next one I really enjoy to increase the difficulty is the Master of Time. So Kang, Master of Time, has these displaced soldiers that have Insight and Surge, which means you get more encounter cards. They're not super hard to kill, but the boost card is to deal yourself some extra encounter cards, so that's always punishing. We have the Light of the Century Spheres that you'll discard cards until you discard a minion. So again, you might be getting those ones. Put that minion into play, engage with the player who defeats the scheme. You have the Ancient Grudges that go get Kang. So, and then you have the Obligations that you can't attack Kang. So I think, like, thematically, I think it's pretty cool, because then you're like, oh no, if I go to Alter Ego, the villain might scheme out. But now Kang is in the mix, and it's just like, what a Royal Rumble. Why is Kang here while we're getting attacked? And it's just like, it just creates a nice mess that you have to deal with Kang. And especially if you have those fears of Kang, they might not happen, but they might come in. Like, it might be a free card. We're like, oh yeah, that wasn't a bad encounter card. And then Kang shows up, and then you're like, oh shoot, I can't deal with the threat. I can't deal with Kang. And you're like, uh-oh, problems. And that can just kind of become a little bit more challenging. But it's very iffy. You know, it doesn't mean it's going to happen every time. But this one is really going to complicate things. The Enchantress that comes in with the Seduces, and then the Beguiles that steal your allies that become minions. This definitely increases the challenge. Because again, if you're forced to go to Alter Ego because you're seduced, you can't get rid of those enchantments. It makes it very, very tough to deal with these 2 clowns here that are just going to keep piling up the damage on that tower. So as far as difficulty, these are some of my best recommendations. Obviously, you could always add the Reavers or the Acolytes, or you can add the Legions of Hydra. Those are always, like, obviously Anachronauts and whatnot are very difficult, but I was going for a little bit more thematics here, and then what kind of fits with their scenario here. And then finally, for the lulls, if you've never played with the MCM Madness, well, these are the Marvel Champion Monthly's crew, and I actually enjoy playing these guys once in a while with the different scenarios. You got Americano, who's got Guard and Retaliate 2 with 9 health. That has a boost ability. After this activation ends, you shuffle him back. You got Addercop, that increases all the basic cards by 1. And you have to revisit a physical comic book if you know. You discard each aspect card from your hand, which is super punishing. And then you got Lester Crook, who's got Quick Strike, and then attacks for 3, and then he gives them tough status cards. And after his activation ends, you deal this card to the first player as a face-down encounter card. So these guys are coming out to punish you. Crimson schemes for 3, has Patrol, and then gains Insight to all of your cards. And then Kennedy, oh, my favorite Kennedy, because I love protection. Kennedy Hawk has... each player reduce the ally limit by 1, and then discard each ally and protection green card from your hand. And then the boost ability is to do the when revealed. And then I love the little quote. It says, green cards are gross. Very, very cool. So if you haven't tried these out, check it out. It's a print and play offered by Marvel Champions Monthly. These great guys. There's that side schemes. Very, very fun in multiplayer. So it's a little confusing at first, but it starts with 5 per player. And if it has 5 per player or more, or less, it's going to have an acceleration. When it's at 3 players or less, it's going to have a hazard icon. And if it's at 1 player or less, it's going to be a crisis, a amplify icon. So there you go. And then you got the critical encounters mind raise that discards the highest cost allies in play. And then discard cards from the top until you discard an MCM minion and reveal it. But if no ally was discarded, the card will just gain Surge. All right, and you still have to find an MCM Madness. So, guys, that's a very fun one for the lulz. The next one for the lulz is the Wrecking Crew. Proxima and Corvus Glaive are trying to destroy the Avengers Tower. Why not enjoy them with the crew? The fact that they also have 3 boost icons and double boost icons, it can really add up to the damage that they may produce. So these Wrecking Crews are there to punish you. They all have villainous, so that means there's a lot of things that can happen to hurt you. And then finally, just for the lulz, I do like the ship command with the Milano, because if you see, there's like there's the ship coming in and trying to destroy the tower. So I always like that. Oh, well, let's have a ship of our own, and then the Guardians are fighting with us in the air, and there you go. And then you have all the cards that go with ship command. So these modular sets, this is for the lulz for this scenario. So hope you enjoyed these recommendations. Now let's get to look at some of the best cards to include when facing off against Proxima and Corvus Glaive. Alright, so finally the best cards to include in Aggression. Audacity, get rid of those nasty tough status cards that they'll have a tendency to get. Relentless Assault to get through those guard minions. Piercing Strike, again, to get rid of those annoying tough status cards. Malaise, because now you can hit both of them at the same time, which is awesome. Then you have a Brute Force and Wolverine. These are cards that will excel, and you will not regret putting those cards in your deck when you're facing off against this dynamic duo. In Protection, Defiance, again, getting rid of those boost icons that can deal some damage or add their combined power is pretty good. Sidestep, again, preventing damage, defending for Corvus Glaive, and also being able to remove some tough if you paid for lightning resource. Electrostatic armor, energy barrier, and hard knocks to give yourself some tough status cards as well. When she wants to attack you for a lot, then be tough and be like, yeah, come at me, bro. And then again, energy barriers to transfer some of that damage to get rid of those tough status cards. Injustice, definitely one way or another to pull that nasty City in Crisis, where possibility you can draw up to 5 cards, which is really, really good just for removing 2 threat in solo, is very good. I'm going to add 2 under surveillances. Why? Because you can put 1 on each main scheme. Bringing those up to 10 is just crazy in solo. That means you're never going to worry about the tower going down. You might not even have to take an extra encounter card. So if you're going to play the scenario, gaming it Injustice, adding those under surveillance 2 in your deck is money balls. And then again, to help with those nasty tough status cards, Wiccan and Daredevil, who can do some work here just to remove that annoying tough. All right, then in Leadership, we got the Squirrels. Obviously, dealing damage to everything is great. Hawkeye, who can just discard a card from your hand and just always stay in play and just remove a tough if you need to. Black Knight, who is piercing, and Yondu, who doesn't take retaliate damage. So these allies, good choices for what you want to be doing here. And then you can include Longshot. You can just shuffle him into the villain's deck. And then if he comes out for you, he's going to have piercing. So that's pretty awesome. And then he does gain Surge, though, when he does come out. But he comes into play in your control. Or else you can always just, if you don't want to include Longshot, include a Plasma Pistol or a Pulse Grenade. Plasma Pistol is a guaranteed damage. So that can just ping a tough. And then the pulse grenade, again, you can discard cards from the top of the encounter deck. And then for each boost icon, you can deal some damage. It is also a weapon, so it can trigger off other things as well that you might have in your build. So that is it, guys. So this was Villains Beyond, the tower defense. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's going on almost 30 minutes, so that's perfect. And then we'll see you guys at the Con of Heroes. And then we'll come back next week and we'll start doing some Wolverine deck teching. So I hope you guys get excited for that. Yeah, we're almost through the X-Men. So, and again, I won't do Phoenix because there's all these psionic cards that are probably coming out with the next evolution. So, and then Psylocke, who's also psionic. So there's going to be a lot of cards coming out. So I might just wait to do Jean Grey until the next wave comes out, and then we'll see how that plays out. So on that note, I hope you had some fun. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something or two. Let me know if you're going to try some of those modular recommendations in the comments. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. We're past the 2,000. Now we're heading for 2,500, baby. Let's do this together. So yeah, if you have any feedback, always let me know. And then keep on playing Marvel Champions. And remember to just have some fun and play the game. I'll see you soon.